Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much for being here with us and taking us through the dates. The energy from the audience matters, and I think the energy from each one of you has changed this event. This is our first event, and I'd like to thank everyone in e-vidyaloka who's worked behind the scenes to make this a possibility. What we heard today is learning to livelihoods to long-term national value. That's the chain that we have looked at. And so many perspectives, industry perspective of, say, what EXEP is doing or what global capability centers are doing, to the economist at the beginning, Ms. Sonia Pant, Dr. Sonia Pant, who talked on also policy at the education level and what multiplier, economic multiplier that brings into. These are all not different stories. This is just one system and one continuum, and the continuum is education to skills, skills to employability, employability to employment, employment to economic value add. So that continuum exists. And India's scale is not an issue and never is a constraint for India. But what is the issue is the transmission loss that happens in this chain. And I think the key today, and that's what has been spelt by everyone, both the panelists, both the panels that we had, and all the speakers spoke on this one thing: how do you reduce this transmission loss, which is very, very critical. So if you look at scale, India is, people have mentioned these numbers: 98% enrollment rate, 4.3 crore students that are there in higher education, a workforce that will be 1 billion by 2030, correct? But still, we have a possible unemployment rate of 6%. And 6% means at 1 billion people is 60 million. Still a very large number that you need to manage. 88% of our workforce, and this was told by the Niti Aayog person, 88% of our workforce is actually in lower value added jobs. So how do you bring that up? And employers who are stating that over 60% of our graduates are not ready for jobs. Our IIM professor also mentioned that very specifically, that there are jobs, there are not enough skilled people to meet the jobs, but the blue dots showed that we are not matching it correctly also. So even though there is a lack, the second step to it, the second issue is we are not matching whatever is available also, we are not able to match that properly. Now let's look at the skew in the economy. So today we say that our per capita GDP is about 2.5 lakhs. It's about $3,000 is what we say. But we still feel like a $1,000 economy, which is about 75,000. And why is that? That's because 50% of our population, it's about 700 million, 70 crore people, are still earning only 6,000 to 6,500 rupees per month. So if you're earning at 6,000 to 6,500 rupees per month, what is the value add that you're giving? And that is this economic transmission problem that we have. So we are educating everyone, so a 98% enrollment, correct? We are educating everyone, but that's not translating into a skill which is employable. And if it is employable, it is not translating again into a job that is paying enough or not paying correctly. Therefore, the GDP number, which again Dr. Sonia Pant stated, the addition to GDP of 0.3 to 0.4%, which gets added every year if our schooling was done correctly, becomes crucial to understand. So for all those CSR funders, it it's very essential to understand and appreciate that by funding education, they are actually adding to the GDP. And weak foundations actually reduce the lifetime earnings by 20 to 30%. This is also a World Bank data. So what should we do about this? And where is this weak foundations coming from? Most of it is in our schooling system. 70% of our students and our schooling in villages, rural India. So it has to be at the grassroots level that we can make the change. Professor said that in the morning, and absolutely agree that it has to be at that ground level. Now, skills are necessary, but the employability aspect of the skills is a multiplier. So if you see, Skill India, the program, has actually brought in 4.8 crore people under skills. So we've got them skills, but then the employability is still missing. And why is that? Because the key issues, as somebody else mentioned earlier, of problem-solving skills, of the ability to communicate, of the ability to collaborate and work, of the ability to be resilient, all those are taught during school days. But we miss that and then expect our children to pick up those skills at the end of the career, as they are moving to at the end of their schooling or their college. It's a bit too late for them to pick up those skills. Therefore, those skills need to happen beforehand so that the absorption happens correctly. Worldwide, labor absorption has actually gotten better only because of apprenticeships. So when you look at the employability to employment gap, that is filled with this apprenticeship aspect. And that aspect is absolutely critical. And in India, numbers show that absorption into jobs, employment, actually increases by 70 to 80% if there is an apprenticeship program that is happening, which is the reason why that placement rate, if it really has to go up, it has to happen only through a very good apprenticeship program. We heard from Ravi Ramakrishnan on GCCs, correct? Now these GCCs are the value add engines, the economic value add, the last part of the chain which we are talking of. And this is where actually education meets application. So our first part of the chain, education, meets the last part of the chain, economic value add, through application. And these skills have to be transmitted at that point in time. So we don't lose and reduce this transmission loss. What we need to do is look at 4 levers. And I was very happy, because I put down these levers, but the fun was, it was all discussed this morning. I was just excellent. The first lever is, how do I improve productivity of the economy, correct? So how do I improve productivity? Look at agriculture, one of the largest areas where we can actually improve and make a huge difference. 48% of our workforce is involved in agriculture, but agriculture contributes to 18% of our GDP today. So when you have almost half your workforce working in agriculture but contributing to 18%, shows that the real disconnect in the productivity of the economy. So how do we bring in AI? How do we bring in technology? How do we bring in other aspects just to make sure that agriculture can become more productive? And one very simple lever to pull would be just reducing agricultural post-harvest losses, correct? Good storage. Do you know the loss that's caused in post-harvest in our agricultural industry? It's 30%. 30% of our agriculture produce is lost because we don't know how to store what we produce. It's a significant waste. Even if we use technology to reduce that by half, we are done with it. The second one and the third one, which I really liked, was the MSMEs, the Dharwad example, the Blue Dot example, mixed with what I call as the missing middle. We have villages, and then we say, what do we say? Urbanization, correct? So from here, we have jumped over there. We missed Dharwad. We missed Gulbarga. Why do we need to jump all the way there? The Blue Dot is a superb example to show you don't need to jump. So how do we create this? So if you take China, for example, they have around 20,000 smaller towns. We have 8,000. Chinese and Vietnamese, agricultural productivity is 2x ours. Chinese and Vietnamese MSME productivity is 2x ours. So we are missing something in this middle. And as he said, you don't need, the labor is there, the people are there, and my jobs are also there, but we don't match them. And since we don't match them, that child from Dharwad actually lands up in Bangalore to work and in search of a job. So how do we improve that productivity at each level becomes the best thing. The last lever, which we have not pulled effectively at all, the fourth lever, is participation of women in our workforce. Today in India, it's about 20 to 25%. Vietnam, China, 60%, 3x. We are losing a significant part of our workforce by not bringing them into the labor. So if we really want to look at Viksit Bharat, and want to bring this equation of education to skills, to employability, to employment, to economic value, that transmission chain has to be tightened. The losses have to be reduced. And we should measure ourselves based on medium income, not the mean income. So focus on median. How many of are below a certain level? So handle that. Welfare dependencies will only reduce if we start doing this. Growth becomes more resilient. The future is not out there in 2047. It is right now here in our classrooms, it is in our workplace, it is in our campuses, it's in our factories and workshops, it's in our fields, and it is in our small towns. Let's not wait for 2047, it's not going to happen. Strengthen the transmission, reduce the leakage, and let the Indian human capital grow. Thank you.